The Louisiana Seafood Board is proud to sponsor Miss Lucy's cooking series. Louisiana cooking is known around the world. And Louisiana's main ingredient? Seafood. Brought to you by the crawfish farmers and harvesters of Louisiana-grown crawfish.
Bonjour, welcome to Miss Lucy's Cajun Classroom. I'm your host and teacher, Miss Lucy, and today I'm at the Atchafalaya Basin catching some crawfish grown in the wild. So we'll teach you a lot of things about them wonderful recreviers. Stay with me and I'll teach you how to cook them too. The Atchafalaya Spillway is a vast water system west of the Mississippi River in southern Louisiana. It's caused by damming and floodings of the waters. The spillway is America's largest freshwater swamp, and that's where I'll be catching my crawfish for a very special pie that I'm going to make for my son-in-law. Joey Barras is my skipper who will help me. He's one of 1,500 fishermen who harvest million pounds of wild crawfish from the basin. So we should find plenty here to take home, since most of the wild crawfish crop in Louisiana comes from the Atchafalaya Basin. The process for catching crawfish is pretty simple, whether you're going out in the spillway or if you're growing them in your rice field. Either place, you catch them, you need a boat. If you like Joey, sometimes you'll have to travel a long way to get your traps. If you're a pond farmer, however, your trip might not be so far. Once you get to your traps, you move your boat slowly. First, you pick up a trap. Then you empty out the crawfish in it. These things are heavy. Next, you rebait the trap. Then put the trap back in the water and move on to the next one. Look how smoothly it can be done by a professional, of course. You can tell he's done this a time or two before. In addition to the crawfishers in the spillway who catch the wild crawfish, there are about 1,200 producers who cultivate more than 118,000 acres in ponds. Around 70 million pounds of pond-raised crawfish are caught, with an economic value of more than $40 million. The typical rotation of rice to crawfish involves planting rice in the spring. After the permanent flood for rice, usually in June, crawfish are stocked into the ponds. In August, the ponds are drained and the rice is harvested shortly afterward. The field is reflooded in October. Crawfish harvesting can begin in November and run through the time to plant the next rice crop, which is usually in March through early April. If you're a commercial crawfisher, you rise early and work hard, but you cannot beat the surroundings. It's really a peaceful and beautiful place to be. Before I head back to cook these crawfish, I want to introduce you to Adam Johnson, the president of Bayou Land Seafood. They have quite an operation here at Bayou Land. First is the intake process.
As the trucks come in, we weigh the crawfish, and we'll either bulk weigh it, where we'll put 6 or 7 sacks and just get a bulk weight if we know we're going to peel that crawfish, or go right to the grader, or we'll individually tag each one for sale. That goes into the cooler, where it will be either graded or sent to the cook room to be processed. In the grading room, what we do is we'll dump the sacks into a conveyor, which takes it through a grading machine, take the large stuff out, and the smaller stuff we'll peel. The larger stuff we'll either sell live as a graded crawfish, or we'll cook it, season it, box it up, and sell it as a whole ball crawfish in the future. As far as the cook room goes, that product, we use a continuous cooker. Products run through the continuous cooker, where it's fully cooked, run through a chiller, where it'll bring it down below 70 degrees, and we'll peel it from there. We'll package it in 1, 2, or 5 pound packages, depending on what our customer needs, or fresh or frozen bags, and then that product will go in the cooler or the freezer, and from there it's sold.
Well, Adam, I had a ball this morning out there in the basin, but I want you to tell me the difference in pond-raised crawfish and basin crawfish.
Well, basically there's 2 kinds of crawfish that are harvested in Louisiana. There's a red swamp crawfish and a white river crawfish. Red swamp crawfish is the more desirable, and it's probably the more abundant around here. We peel both of them. There's going to be a few white in the sack.
Like this one, right?
That would be a white.
Yeah, that's
and
a white.
You have the red crawfish.
And that's the red one, right? Yeah.
Right.
I see the difference.
There's not a whole lot of difference between the two. The red swamp crawfish is going to give you a more yellow, golden fat. The white river crawfish is going to be more of a light yellow.
Light yellow. Okay, but they're both very tasty.
Very tasty.
Okay.
The process prefers the red crawfish because it yields better. Where during the peak of the season,
meat.
you have more tail meat,
a
more fat content. You'll get a 15 to 18% yield on red crawfish, and you'll probably get somewhere around a 13, 14, 15%
Now, are the
on the white.
bodies harder to peel than,
They're not, especially late in the season, the white crawfish is harder, and there's more claws and a larger abdomen, larger body than tail.
Wow. Well,
So we rather see the red crawfish,
Well,
and of
actually-
course our peelers rather see them too.
well, I guess so, and they're prettier, but they taste very good, either
Right.
one of them. However, did you not tell me that the pond rays originated from the basin?
Well, basically that's what happens. Is the pond crawfish. A lot of this crawfish is coming from rice fields, and they're going to seed their ponds with.
With the
originally
basin.
started basin,
Okay,
and now
right.
they seed with other ponds, but they also try to put basin
Well,
in.
that's interesting.
Right.
Now, this looks so good. I guess I can eat one of these, huh?
They're fully cooked.
C'est bon, ça?
Ça c'est bon.
Bien, merci.
You're welcome.
Well, I think I have enough crawfish for my pie. Guess it's time to head back to the kitchen. Whew, what a Cajun cruise, one I'll never forget. Of course, we went out and caught our crawfish, now I've got to cook them. Of course, first thing you do, first you make a roux. Very good. Started making my roux here, and it's really not a very dark roux. It's kind of like, it's not blonde either, but it's light brown. So to this, let me put this on. Okay, I'm gonna add some onions. Of course, we're gonna saute all this together because we are making a crawfish pie today. Can't have the jambalaya, so we'll make the crawfish pie. Very good. Okay. Now, put this in here, and celery, onions, bell pepper, and celery. Very good. Now, all right, and you saute this real good together, kind of like. Let's cook it all together. Like this. My gosh, it smells good. got this done. You don't want to overdo your vegetables, remember, just so they're shiny. You don't want to make them limp. Just kind of give them a little shiny look of them, about them, and they're done. Okay, and this is parsley. I like quite a bit of parsley in this myself. And, of course, the onion tops. Cook all this together. How can you go wrong with wonderful Louisiana crawfish and all the other great ingredients? All right. Okay. Of course, this is how it's going to look before you add your crawfish. Okay, let me add my crawfish tails, which have been blanched and peeled. Now remember that if you keep your crawfish in the freezer for over a year, you need to rinse them because, of course, the fat will probably get rancid on you. Okay. Wow. Lower this slightly. Good. Very good. Then I'm going to salt and pepper them. Season them according to your taste because, remember, Cajun cooking is according to your taste. People think it's supposed to be hot, but if you add too much seasoning, it destroys the flavor of the main ingredient. You don't want to do that. You want to enhance that flavor. Okay, some Louisiana hot sauce. That going. Mix that up. Wow. Yes, beautiful. I just put it over rice and eat it like this, but you know, my son-in-law asked me to make a crawfish pie with this, so, and of course to that I'll add a dab of water. Now, okay. Mix this together. Oh my gosh, beautiful. Yes, this is basically how I make my etouffees, but although I don't let my roux get that dark, kind of a little bit lighter than this. Now, okay, this looks pretty good to me. So now, just in case that you may have added a little bit too much water to your crawfish, because it will make water after, they will, draw water after they've been cooking. You could thicken this with cornstarch, but if you do have to do that, you mix your cornstarch in with wine, all white wine, and then it'll give it more flavor rather than just with water. Okay, next, of course, crawfish pie to a rice farmer is never completed without rice. So I'm going to add rice to mine. Some people don't care to do that, but I do. So, of course, I have to promote my rice, and I like to think this is on Breaux rice, because I was born and raised on a rice farm, and then I married a rice farmer. Yes, oh my gosh, this is perfect. Very, very good. Man. Almost meld and through that TV, don't you? Okay, now we have to, of course, you can't have a pie without a pie shell. So let's see what we're going to do with this. Okay. Now, there's here. Okay, now I've already been baking all night, just making these pie shells, and I've used the regular pie shell, like you do a pie, and this is an apparatus, a little gadget I love. Every kitchen needs one of these if you like to bake a pie. You just set it on top here, and it cooks. And just in case now, I mean, it may not happen, but just in case you have some spills, it will naturally go in this little pan, and it won't mess your oven up. You won't have a mess to clean up. Righty. Ooh, goodness. I'm telling you. Oh, these crawfish, of course, crawfish is so good. I just cook them different ways. A crawfish boil is very typical of a Cajun home, Cajun entertainment. And when they're in season, everybody just loves to have a big crawfish ball to entertain their friends and their family too. Okay. Now, top of this is a double pie crust. Okay. Just unroll this. Of course, now another hint that I've been told would be good to do is that you could use the rolling pin and roll your pie shell on it, and then when you want to unroll it, you just go ahead and unroll the whole rolling pin. Just unroll it and put it real neatly. Miss Rita McCoy has taught that to me, my friend, and I value her opinion because she's a wonderful cook. But now, well, you know, I'm kind of old-fashioned too. I have a hard time changing my ways, even though it might be a better way. Okay, now you just fold over your shell, your pie crust, and make sure that you've got your edges are tight. You just squeeze it. Squeeze it real tight with your fingers. See, some people use forks to do this with, but I like to use my fingers. I can handle it better. Okay, then you can pinch it. See, and it make a pretty edge. Real this way, good. Alrighty, real nice, and it's gonna be just as tasty as it's gonna look good. Alrighty, next we're gonna take this to the oven. We're gonna bake it at 350 for about a half hour, or until the pie crust gets a beautiful golden brown. Now sometimes it depends on your oven. You may want to bake it at 375 because some ovens are lower than others. So, well, while that bakes, I'm going to show you how to make a dessert that will turn you upside down. And now for that great dessert I promised you. Of course, I've melted some butter in my baking pot here, which I use a pot to bake this in. It just makes such a pretty presentation. And this is some light brown sugar. I like to use the light brown. And of course, if you prefer the dark, that's fine. You may choose whichever one you prefer. Okay, make sure it's all real covered up real good. Okay, now pat it in. Okay, now, okay, next, of course, I'm going to add my pineapples to this. Pineapple slices. Just arrange them real neat here, pretty. All right. I guess by this you've already guessed what kind of cake this is going to be. Very good. Pineapple. And of course, next you add the cherries to it. Just put all the cherries in the center of the pineapple. Push them down. Okay. Look at this, how pretty it is already. Oh well, just for quality control. That'll do. Okay. Of course, this is going to be a cake. So we'll have to do our batter for this. Okay. Very good. See here, I've got my mixer, and I've got a cake mix in here. I use the white cake mix. No pudding in the mix. To this, I'm going to add some eggs that I've already beaten, some sugar, and oil. Hey, mix that up real good. All right, just a couple minutes maybe. Okay, now to this, you have to add the liquid. Now you reserve your pineapple juice. And of course, to this, you add milk just to make it equal a cup. So that's about how much liquid you're going to use. Okay, and I'll pour this in here. Let's work it in. Very good. This gives it a very good flavor because that pineapple juice just enhances the taste of the cake mix. Yeah. All right. Okay. That's going real good. All right, now we got it. Put it up. Of course, if my licking machine would be here, I could use her, but she's not here today, so I'm gonna have to use a little saucer, which is always a good thing to do because you kind of avoid making a big mess. But of course, all good cooks are messy cooks, so it's all right. Now, I'm gonna pour this over the cake mix into the pot here. Right, this is the batter. You just pour it right over your brown sugar and your pineapple slices and the cherries. Man, that smells good. Bad we don't have smell-o-vision and taste-o-vision. I have to start working on that, I guess. Okay, make sure all your corners are covered. Okay, now, good deal. So we're going to bake this in the oven, about 350, for about 30, 35, maybe 40 minutes. It depends on your oven. Okay, got that. Okay, now we'll wait for this to finish baking. We'll flip it on top of a board. Honey, whether this cake is right side up or upside down, can't beat it. It's delicious. And now I'm going to show you how to make a very good pea salad. Of course, this is quick and easy and so good you can serve it with any meal. It takes the place of a lot of my potato salads when I want a variation. Of course, you start off with the petit pois, which means little pea. Next, you take the onion, which I have here. You have to have grated onion in here. Be careful not to cut your hand because these things are very sharp. Just go ahead and grate you some onion. And of course, this is real good. You can chop it up fine, but I prefer the grated onion in here. This is very good. Yeah. Okay. Now to this, I'm going to chop up an egg. Of course, there's a lot of secrets to having boiled eggs, and Melissa taught me how to do this really well. She tells me to put her water boiling, and then she puts her egg in boiling water very gently and brings it back to a boil, sets a timer on for 12 minutes perfectly, and then she takes them out, puts them in a strainer, runs cold water on them, because if you let them set in the water or don't cool them off, they'll keep on cooking, and you may have a little circle of a black ring around the egg, which it's okay. It doesn't alter the taste of the egg, but it still doesn't look very well. So I've taken a lot of lessons from her, and now I'm passing that on to you. Added salt and pepper to this. Now, next thing, of course, is we're going to add our last ingredient to this, which is mayonnaise. And that's another thing Melissa told me not to say mayonnaise, but you know how old Cajuns are. They just don't change their ways. All right, you mix this up real well. Now, the thing about this salad, you really need to refrigerate it overnight, because the flavor of the onion will just really make it really tasty. That's all I can say about it. So good. So I've learned a lot from Melissa. She's a good cook. But anyway, we're going to put this in the fridge. Look how pretty this is too. It's really nice. Very good. Alrighty. I'll let this set in the refrigerator overnight, and tomorrow at noon we'll have this for lunch.
After a great day and a great meal, I'd like to share a letter with you. Dear Miss Lucy, comment ça va? My mother was a viator from Coteau, right outside New Iberia. My New Iberia aunts get quite offended if I eat only one dinner or breakfast at a time. Man, you sick, Chef? You don't love me like you used to, you? I better say a rosary for you so you feel better, yes? My wife, a Cajun by marriage from Detroit, now loves dirty rice, and she enjoyed seeing your rice dressing recipe. Keep up your wonderful work. Tommy Viator Burns from Tucson, Arizona. Thank you, Tommy, for writing this letter to me, and thank you for joining me today. I hope that you have had a great time and have learned many lessons in Miss Lucy's Cajun classroom.
The Louisiana Seafood Board is proud to sponsor Miss Lucy's cooking series. Louisiana cooking is known around the world, and Louisiana's main ingredient? Seafood. Brought to you by the crawfish farmers and harvesters of Louisiana-grown crawfish. To order Miss Lucy's cookbooks, please send check or money order to the address on your screen or call toll-free 1-800-257-5829.